Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of Smartphone Now with Smartphone Medic here in Columbia, South Carolina. Today, we're going to start off by talking about the iPhone 7. I have with me Robbie Reeser and Logan Newbanks. Speak up, guys.
Hello.
What up?
Alrighty, so let's get right into it. Start off by talking about the colors. Very new for Apple. You know, they don't really add many color, or they haven't really added any new colors for a while, but they've added the jet black and matte black colors, and I think that matte black is going to be very, very pretty. I don't know about you guys, but that's the one that if I were to get, I would definitely go matte black. Jet black would be way, way too fingerprinty.
I've never really cared for the space gray. I actually like the piano black myself, as far as an aesthetic point of view. I mean, yeah, it'd be a fingerprint magnet, but it's kind of like owning a black car. You know, it's going to show every little bit of dirt, but it looks sharp.
Especially once you clean it off.
But you'll need a case with that.
Oh yeah, there's no way you're going to get an iPhone 7 and survive without a case. So why would you get the one that's super... I mean, I guess why would you care
You can get a clear, rugged case like I have.
Well, actually, yeah, that makes sense. Get it real clean and then put a case on it and you're good to go. Alright, so... now that we've kind of discussed the colors, cameras, kind of impressed and kind of not with just the regular iPhone 7 stuff because it's kind of right there with the 6S. They didn't really do very much, but they did change that front-facing camera from 5 megapixels to 7. So if anybody is into selfieing, you know, it will look better for you. And then to that 12 megapixel camera, they changed the f-stop to 1.8, so you can get a lot better low light shots if you're taking photos, videos, and whatnot. And they changed and they gave, you know, a little bit more image stabilization and a wider color gamut. Essentially now, it's kind of comparable to the Galaxy S7, but the S7 is still better. It's got a wider color gamut, a little bit wider of an angle, and it just looks a little bit better on their screen because the screen is better.
I think the better front camera is kind of a double-edged sword because, yes, you're going to have more definition in your selfies, but that's going to show off all your nice pimples, so you better be using some good image correction software there. But yeah, I mean, really, I guess when all is said and done, I mean, I remember clear back when I worked for T-Mobile, the HTCs came out and they were bragging so much about the low-light features. You know, we would take the first thing we did was just took the phone into the storage closet to test it out. And I mean, yes, it was a difference, but I really, and it's not Apple, it's everybody. I want to see some real world testing of this camera. I want to see what it really does. You know, let's get it out there with the other ones and see what kind of a difference we can get out of it. I mean, frankly, you know, I kind of come from the older generation and I know what I've come from, and it's all of the phone's cameras at this point are amazing at this point. So it's not a huge difference compared to like 10 years of phone difference. It's amazing.
But Ray, you're forgetting about the fuzzy background on the 7S. When you've got that image, it looks like a 3D.
Well, yeah. I mean, once we get up to that 7 Plus camera, you know, you got that telephoto lens and the wide angle, which is a nice step up.
7 Plus, that's right.
It's a nice step up from, you know, the 7, but, you know, realistically, that bokeh effect that they're bragging so hard about, that can be achieved in almost any photo editing software. To be fair, it's really neat to not need it, because if you can't really afford it or you just don't have it, you know, you don't have to have it if you have the 7 Plus.
That better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, I guess, Mr. Haggerty. But I will be curious to see how it compares to last year's LG G5, which also has a dual camera setup for much of the same purpose. But since I believe Philip's going to be getting the 7 Plus, we can do a showdown of mine versus his, and let's see how it does.
We could throw my S7 in there.
Well, I'll tell you this, how Apple's marketing the new camera setup, every mother in the world is going to want that phone.
Heck yeah. That way you can like really get awesome pictures of your kids. Like every mother wants amazing photos of their kids without having to pay for them.
I believe, isn't this the first one that's doing 4K video? Is it the first for 4K video?
No, the 6S and 6S Plus have 4K
it's the second
video.
one for 4K video.
But this, you know, kind of bridges the gap a little bit between regular photos and videos and 4K with the higher stuff.
I wouldn't consider this playing devil's advocate, but something I do have to point out here is those are amazing, great features, and they really are. But at the end of the day, your average user, they end up uploading it to Facebook, and those images and video do get heavily compressed. You know, I myself own a phone with a lot of amazing features. At the end of the day, do I really get the bang for my buck? But, you know, I mean, some features are kind of, you know, bragging points, but really we'll see, you know, that's really on Facebook, frankly, to, you know, to up the image and video quality. So
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of, and I mean a lot of photo posting, but when I use the rear camera on my S7, and if I'm even thinking about putting it in a video, always go landscape and don't post it before I take it out of the memory card and render it somewhere else. That way you don't lose that quality.
Yeah,
Sadly, most people just pop it right up on Facebook from the phone, and you lose so much.
And really, I mean, you know, if you look at any of the articles, like I'm practically always on Gizmodo or any of those, they'll do the side-by-side comparisons. And I mean, I really don't see a huge difference, you know, in one generation's phone. I don't see a huge difference. I mean, sure, you'll see little differences in like saturation and correctness of color and things like that. But, you know, like I said, to the average user that's you know, taking pictures of their kids and their dogs and their food, you know, are they really going to see a huge difference? Now, you know, me doing the kind of nerd work that I do, it's nice having an extremely sharp camera because I can take pictures through the microscope with mine. But, you know, I guess it's my critique towards any of the current generation devices is they're all amazing, but are people really using all these amazing features?
Logan, let everyone know what phone you carry.
Sorry, yes, I am currently using the LG G5. I mean, yeah, it's got a really great camera, but you know, at the end of the day, like if I'm taking my pictures, it's nice to have, you know, that high end because, like I said, specifically what we do, if I have something on a motherboard, I've got to show Robbie, I can take a picture through the microscope and you can actually see like the chips on the board. It's a great camera. Or you know, a little low light photography outdoors, that's always been a severe pain point for smartphone cameras. I've been extremely happy with mine, but you know, I don't want to sit here and have favoritism because I can tell you, you know, with current generation, it's not just the G5 that has an amazing camera. You know, I think the new Samsung and you know the new iPhone will all have, you know, amazing shots at night, like nothing compared to what it was 2 or 3 years ago.
The Note 7 would have a flaming camera for sure.
I hear it's
Heck
red hot.
yeah. You know, it's exploding in the market right now. But you know, if we were to completely wipe out the fact that the S7 has been exploding, I honestly think that the iPhone 7 would be blown out of the water right now from all the stuff that's packed in that S7.
Now, from a technician's perspective, we can tell you any of the smartphones that use a lithium-ion battery, those batteries are extremely volatile. We have seen them smoke, catch fire, and explode in our shops.
I saw one smoke today.
Really, I think what's going on from the latest stuff I've read about, what's going on is you're basically having the two ports are connecting, which is why it's getting hot. But I don't want to give Samsung too much flack because, I mean, you're talking about packing an insane amount of power in a small amount of space, and lithium ion batteries, they're a really volatile piece of hardware.
I think we're going to find out that a simple piece of tape probably was left out of the battery of the Note 7.
It's going to be something just so tiny and minuscule. And I mean, the fact of the matter is, I really, you know, how many millions of that phone have been sold? And then we're up to maybe 70 phones, which is nothing to scoff at, but it's a very small amount of owners that it happened to.
Yeah, I mean, it always could have been worse. Like if they missed it on every single phone and every single one of them happened, or it happened to every single one of them, that would definitely be a huge up in Apple stock and everything right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of silly. A lot of it's panic factor, and that, you know, if that many happen, but every time you call customer service, like one of the first messages that plays after "thank you for calling Verizon" is if you were calling about the Note recall, and it's like I said, maybe 70 phones. I mean, there's definitely kind of a panic factor going on there that people are kind of blown out of proportion, to be fair.
I mean, if I had the Note 7, I would immediately want to make sure that mine isn't going to blow up in my hands.
Yeah.
Regardless of however many they've sold versus how many have done it. It happened to somebody, it could happen to me, so I completely understand that.
Some of those owners of the Note 7 were the lucky ones when they probably have a lot of cracked screens and they're being covered.
Yeah, that too.
Or they had a really bad old car that conveniently caught fire and now Samsung has to replace.
That's the best case scenario, as long as you're not in that car.
My old Daewoo, my Samsung blew up in it, so we're gonna have to upgrade now.
Oh no.
Your car's on fire, just toss your Note 7 in it. You're covered.
No one quote us on that. We did not say that.
This
We did
does
not condone
reflect
this
the-
behavior.
This does not reflect the opinions of the staff and or the company.
We are off the clock right now. So, but back to the iPhone 7. You know, this camera's, you know, it's a big step up. And I think that they're slowly bridging the gap between the iPhone cameras and the Samsung cameras and LG cameras. But, you know, I think Apple still needs more. You know, if they want to surpass them, they definitely need more. But they're getting close to just kind of catching up. I feel like they're on the right track now, but they need to really step up their game still. But on to the batteries. You know, Apple is saying that this is the longest lasting iPhone battery to date. And, you know, no one really has it right now, so we can't really 100% say that it's actually lasting longer. But, you know, with that new A10 chip in there and it's all these new power consumption chips and stuff, you know, it's consuming way less power with a slightly bigger battery, so I can see where it would, you know, not use as much. But we can't really say anything about that until it comes out.
I do want to see the battery.
Well, you know, something that's always touted by the Apple fanboys is, you know, at the end of the day, hardware does not make or break. And I have to agree with them on that point. So, you know, the MAH is not the beginning, and you know, it's not the be-all end-all answer. As far as an example of what I'm talking about with that is, a lot of Android users have noticed that with the last two iterations of Android being Marshmallow and now Nougat, there's a new feature that's been built into it called Doze, and the first iteration of Doze in Marshmallow would essentially see if your phone was, you know, not being used and set down on a table, and it would cut off a lot of the features automatically to save battery life. And Doze is now even more effective in the latest version, to where it's, you know, even if it's in your pocket, it can still sense that you're not actively using the phone. And, you know, with users who have older phones, you know, that new software upgrade made a difference even on theirs. So
I could definitely see where that would make a big difference with, you know, your Bluetooth and your Wi-Fi and this, that, and the other, everything that you have in the background. Like if you don't even close your applications, it'll kind of cut the data connectivity and stop power consumption.
And something
That's a good idea.
Something that we see too, you know, you've got to be fair, is that real world usage can vary. You know, if you have your, you know, stereotypical teenager who is, you know, posting on Instagram nonstop and playing games, their battery consumption is not going to be the same as a person who has a phone in their pocket for a lot of the day. You know, that you can see 2 to 3 times the amount of battery life if you're not actively living on the phone, or even if you're just adjusting the brightness. So
Yeah, always be careful of that brightness. If it's all the way up, you could be doing nothing but making a phone call and it'll just drain. But so yeah, they stepped up their battery game, and I would like to see where it is when it actually comes out.
Well, to this point, there's only one teardown of the iPhone 7. Is that correct? Is that what everybody is kind of
Is there a
seeing?
teardown now?
There is a teardown.
Yeah, I saw something on the internet about it. I didn't have time to click on it though.
as far as like what I'm reading online and stuff, you know, I really feel like phone choice is really just a matter of preference, because they're all good options at this point. There's plenty of good options no matter what your operating system is. But I have to base a lot of opinions and stuff on what I'm reading. You know, a lot of longtime Apple users have been saying, and you know, a lot of flack has been sent towards Apple's way for the fact that they really didn't need to make the device thinner as far as what the Apple fans want. You don't necessarily want a thinner device. From an engineering standpoint, when you have a device with a bigger screen, the thinner you go, the less structurally stable it's going to be. It's going to be easier to bend. It's going to be easier to crack. That's nothing on, you know, the 6 as a device by itself, or the 6S by itself. When you make a device, period, that is that thin and that wide, it's not going to be as strong as, you know, your 4 or your 5 series. You know, a lot of users will tell you they don't really care about having a phone even thinner at this point. They want a bigger battery.
I hate when I get like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm already at like 50 or 40% on my battery. I would definitely take a slightly thicker phone.
As big of a market as cases with batteries built in are, you know, the consumer's dollar speaks volumes. There's a lot of people out there. We don't want a thinner phone. We just want more battery life. I mean, I'm pretty happy with what I have now. I don't goof off on my phone as much as I used to, so I get pretty good battery life at this point. But what people want, if you listen to what people are saying in forums and on threads, they want bigger battery life. They don't care about how thin the thing is. It's just becoming just like a competition to see who can get it the thinnest at this point.
Yeah, and if Droid, I think they're the Droid Max. If they had really maximized the phones when they came out with that phone, that would have blown up. But they kept crappy hardware and kind of meh software, I think, in that with an amazing battery, and it really didn't take off because everything else was mediocre, and then the battery was phenomenal.
You have something else that factors in as well. A big piece of Motorola's problem was with any manufacturer. LG is another fine example of that. Is that from what we see, like if you take from today's G5 down back to the G2, the G2 is not really that great of a phone. And if you're a manufacturer and you make some not so great phones, you can turn right back around and make a stellar phone the next generation. But if people feel burnt from the last gen, they're not going to see how great that phone is. So, Motorola has gotten a lot of flack over the years for making kind of subpar devices. And then they made some pretty amazing devices, because if you consider like the Motorola G series overall, like those are considered some of the best Android phones period in a long time. But so many people were burnt by bad Motorola's, they don't want to give it a shot. And that's been a big problem for Motorola, I think, and LG as well. They produce some pretty phenomenal hardware, but there's been some pretty bad LG phones in the past.
Yeah, I had the G2 and the G3, and the only reason I got the G3 is because it was a free upgrade, and then I did not want to go back and get the G4, even though the G3 wasn't the worst phone ever.
I love my G3
was just
personally.
like you said, I was completely burnt. Like I was tired of the same series where they had the same issues, and it was just rough.
LG's we call it tagline should be talent skips a generation. G2 horrible, G3 I liked it, not everybody liked it. G4 pretty bad with the software crashing. G5 is awesome, so I'm guessing the G6 is going to suck, so I'll hang out for the G7.
The G5 is the best design phone out there as far as repairability.
Yeah, like the whole thing, I'd say they definitely have taken a cue from Apple as far as design, because it's like everything inside of it's on rails. The charge port literally pops out. For us, there's no repair for us to have to do. We just swap the thing out. The battery it pops out like a clip out of a gun. It's pretty great.
Yeah, it's a little bit hard to get out if you don't have fingernails sometimes, but it's super neat. It looks amazing. But back to the iPhone 7 here. The processors, they have a quad-core processor in there now. The two of them that are always doing all the processing, and two smaller ones that are kind of keeping the background stuff going. So that's kind of how they're saying that it's going to have less power consumption, because everything that would need all of them now only needs smaller ones, and then you can use the two big ones for like your gaming if you want to. Some people do this, but if you want to edit videos or photos on the phone, it'll use the bigger ones. But if you're just kind of chilling on the home screen, going through settings, it'll use the smaller processors with a lot less power.
I mean, that's really, once again, I'm going to go back to real world usage, and that's really the only area I see this being an important factor for your average user, is for editing video and stuff like that. Because I mean, some people that, it's a very small percentage that are going to sit there and try to play hardcore games on their phones. If you're going to play hardcore gaming, you're probably going to be doing it on a PC versus a phone. But yeah,
well, I think that enough people do it, because the App Store is just blowing up. So there
was a big boom. I don't know if it's as big as it was before. At least I noticed. I don't know how long it's been since probably like 2005. There was a huge boom in trying to make these kind of high-end games and stuff. But I feel like it's kind of chilled out lately. As far as like the major developers, like Gameloft was really on it for a while, making some excellent mobile games that were almost comparable to a console game. And is that still there? Yes, it is. Is there still people that play it? Yeah, but like I said, I think that really the where people are actually going to be using it the most is going to be for editing media on their device, because that's going to be the most common use. But that really seems to be the common design architecture lately for smartphones, is to have your big beefier processor to do a lot of that heavy stuff, and then you've got another processor kind of doing stuff in the background. The first I remember was the first Moto G was the first I remember. It may not be the first to do it, but they had it with the always on feature where you could talk to the phone. You could say, okay, Google, and it would fire up and do command. Oh, here's mine now. But
I think it might have actually been the Moto X.
Sorry, if I didn't say that, I meant to say Moto X. was the first to do that.
Yeah, because I almost wanted that phone because of that.
Yeah, and now they're all pretty much. I mean, that was a good design feature, and I'm glad everybody's adopting that kind of style.
I'm definitely down with that, and I'm glad that Apple is kind of jumping in with everybody else. But they're saying that compared to the 6S or the 6S Plus, and this is a big jump for me. 1/5 of the power consumption, which is huge comparatively. Maybe not comparatively to like the Note 7. Because if it's doing something like that, it's not going to be that big of a jump. But from the 6S to the 7, that's a huge jump, that's accurate.
Well, yeah, once again, this is also going to have to fall back to real-world usage. Those specs may can be completely and totally accurate, but the question is what kind of background processes are running on that phone. I think that makes a big difference, what they're actually doing.
Because if you have every single application open on your phone...
You can have amazing hardware, but if your launcher or your skin or your operating system is not optimized to take advantage of that, I don't care how good your hardware is, it's going to be bad. So we'll see. It's not that I don't have faith. Let's see how it goes once we have one in our hands.
Actions speak louder than words. But so they also changed the home button this year. It no longer clicks, just a piece of glass with a fingerprint reader in there, and then they have this chip in there, and you can choose out of, I believe it's 3 settings for vibration. So you would click, and the first setting is like minimal vibration, and then it goes up from there, and it's like simulated click, and the whole phone buzzes. I watched a couple of people kind of review the unboxing video. They get it early, and they said that it was really weird, and that they would need to get like used to it. So I'm kind of afraid to see what that's like, honestly.
I'll play pros and cons here. I remember when I got my first phone with a touchscreen, that was a bizarre experience. Trying to type on a screen was the weirdest thing ever, and it took me forever to get used to.
Now it's the norm.
To play the con on that, usually other manufacturers have been guilty of what I call kind of gimmicky features. I'm trying to remember what it was. It was in like the S5. Everybody was freaking out about it, and I was like, that's a cool feature, but are you really going to does that really make a huge difference in your day-to-day what you do with your phone kind of stuff? I asked that with the kind of the haptic thing. Is the haptic engine is cool, like the way the stuff works, where it kind of clicks and does stuff like that, but how much does that really change your life versus a regular vibration on your phone?
Well, I had the OnePlus 2 for a little while, and it had a glass button, but it didn't vibrate.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell when I pushed the button. So I like that they linked it, but I don't know exactly what they're going to do with the regular vibrations like you're talking about. Like, why up vibrations
from what I
need it?
From what I understand, there's kind of like different vibrations based on what it's trying to tell you. And then, go back, like it's been a feature forever is to have ringtones based on who's calling you. That feature is in my phone right now, and I never use it. And that's on me because I'm lazy, but that's not that big a deal to me. I'm sure it's a big deal to somebody, and it's cool, but it just feels...
I used to have it.
It feels gimmicky to me, but they're all guilty of that. So.
Really, I think that's just a setting to appease, like, moms and dads and young kids when they want to, mom's calling, and then they have the notification, your mom's calling, beware, mom's calling.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's cool, I suppose.
Well, up to a very much needed upgrade is the dual speakers, but it's weird because the bottom speaker's in the right grill where it always has been, and the other speaker is coming out of the earpiece speaker hole on the top. One's coming straight at your face, and the other one's going one other direction, whether you're holding it right or left.
I'll be curious.
Which is weird.
I'll be curious to see how that is when you're actually using it. I know, like, it is great to have stereo speakers if you're someone who actually tries. I mean, I do try to watch videos occasionally on my phone, and it is nice having a good set of speakers. So, props to them on throwing dual speakers in there. Let's see how they do.
Will Beats pay off for Apple?
I think so.
I kind of, as soon as I saw the whole, because there have been rumors for a while now about the whole removal of the headphone jack, which we will get into detail later. That rumor's been around for a while, but I pretty much could predict the end game. The moment that the Beats purchase was going down, I'm like, this is exactly where they're aiming. This is going to happen because they have bought the most popular headset maker on the market right now, so they're going to work it into their proprietary stuff that they're building with Beats. I knew the moment they did that is exactly what they were aiming for.
I mean, it was a very smart move because Beats are very, very good and they have nice quality. So, And it's nice to, if you go buy a Beats headphones,
Well,
now you have Apple warranty with those Beats, because Apple
And
warranty
audio-
is some of the best warranty you can
That's
get.
true.
The best.
An audiophile would tear you apart for calling Beats good sound, but it is a smart move because they are popular. Every kid has Beats headphones in our gym. It was an extremely smart marketing move of them to do. I'm not going to knock them for it because that's, at the end of the day, they're a business and they have bills to pay, and that was a very smart move of them.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. So, one of my favorite things that they've finally done is they've made the iPhone brighter on this new screen. Supposedly 25%, but that 25% is a big deal because I ramped up an iPhone 5S today and realized compared to my S7 how dark that is. But if you don't look at like any others for a while and then you pick up that iPhone 5S, it's really bright to yourself. But I'm really excited that they finally ramped up that brightness because it really bothered me. I don't know why, but it just kind of did.
We've been pampered having these great bright screens and stuff. Like it's definitely like if you're in the sun, you've got to have a bright screen, man. Now when you wake up at 6 in the morning, it will definitely fry your eyeballs. So make sure you set your settings to automatic for that.
Heck yeah. But they also have a wider color gamut output. So, if you have a deeper color or a brighter color, you can supposedly see it just that much better now compared to the 6S.
Well, compared to the OLED screens in general, OLEDs they've had the market for a while, and they're going to have the market as far as color saturation and as far as density, because it really surprised me because there was a lot of rumor, there was a lot of talk with us that they were considering switching to OLED.
I thought that they were going to do that.
For at least this one or this one in the last generation, they were talking about switching to the OLEDs because it does have kind of superior quality screens. But I mean, if they can get what they can get out of the current or out of these newer screens, let's see how it performs when we have one in our hands. So
yeah, I would love to see them jump over to that. But so the final thing that we're going to talk about today is the most controversial, the headphone jack. So everybody and their mom has an opinion on this. So we're going to start with Logan, Robbie, and then me.
All right,
Let's just kind of see where we end.
Going to get a little nerdy on this. What really, we all know how everybody feels about the lack of a headphone jack. Not a lot of people are happy about it, and that's not really what I don't want to talk about. What everybody else is talking about. What I really want to talk about with this issue of removing a headphone jack is, the way that they decided to do it is they feel that the future is to go to a wireless setup for for listening to your music and stuff. And the new earbuds that they're doing, it really felt like they were really trying to push a better audio quality. But we're going to go back to Science 101, and I'll give you kind of an example to explain my point here. I have had internet issues on my computer, and the problem I have is, my internet runs really, really slow. And the way I had to fix that, because of our particular situation, I had to run Cat5 wire and run a live wire to my computer. Because at the end of the day, with your connection, a wireless connection is never going to be as good a quality as a wireless connection because of compression issues, and then you're going to have degradation based on the distance from the device. You can have the most amazing Wi-Fi card in the world, but it will never ever be able to compete with a Cat5 connection, a live solid line from the computer to the modem. And that works the same way for wireless as well. Anyone who has Bluetooth earbuds can attest to you that they're never going to compare quality-wise to a headphone connection. That's just science for you. Now, I'm sure they've probably, they're working with Beats, and Beats knows how to use software to optimize sound. And I'm sure there will be, pretty good quality out of those AirPods, which I really feel like they missed an awesome opportunity to name them Airbuds. Like the movie?
They really should have.
They should have called them Airbuds. You missed the mark there, Apple.
I might would have bought them if they were called Airbuds.
But yeah, once again, I'll tell you what I want. I want us in the shop to get our hands on a pair of AirPods and to do a Pepsi challenge. We can take those AirPods and kind of hook some cords to them so they don't feel like that's what they are, and have like the old school Pepsi challenge. Just have a blindfold test, and let's see who feels like they sound better at the end of the day. Because science would say that you're not going to get better sound quality out of switching to wireless. The other benefits of wireless, yeah, there totally are. I just bought some wireless headphones for myself because when I jog, I don't want the cable yanking my phone out of my pocket. There's definitely benefits to that. But as far as the future of sound, switching to wireless or better quality, I don't think it really works that way. But like I said,
It definitely does not work that way at all.
let's play with them when they come out, and let's see. We'll tell you what we think.
No, I'm going to cut it short. I'm just going to say, Logan nailed it. The complaint on the sound is going to be that it is soft, and you're going to always hear that in.
Yeah, like I said, it's never going to compare quality wise, and like I said, we're not going to touch big on the points of what everybody else is bringing up. How do I charge my phone and listen to music at the same time?
Obviously, a dongle that Apple will generously sell you.
Right, or once again, there's a dongle for that. How do I connect it to my car? There's another problem. There's already a long-term solution for this one, but everyone and their mama that has a small business runs with something called a Square Reader, where they can scan your credit cards. Square is actively, actually, no, I'm sorry. Last I read on the forums, let me correct myself. I believe they do work with that adapter, but you have to have the adapter to use the Square Reader too.
Which now it's just going to be flimsy and weird.
And it's hilarious. Like, I don't know if anybody out there goes on Reddit, but there's already a dude on Reddit who is building a case. Like, it's not a company, it's just this kid who's working on designing a case to where they put the headphone jack back in. And if this was such a revolutionary, courageous act as they put it, then why are there all these third-party solutions popping up left and right, even just kids tinkering in their basement? What I'm really going to be curious to see is Apple doesn't often go back on a design decision, but it's not unheard of because, Robbie can probably tell me more specifically, but I believe there was an iPod. They changed something on the button setup. People were not happy, and they did switch back in the next generation.
Not sure.
Not sure. I read something. Yeah, I can't say because I'm not an iPod owner, but I believe there was an iPod. They did something to switch the traditional layout, and people were not happy, and they did switch back. So there is a possibility if they get enough flack, if enough people aren't buying iPhones, that Apple might change their tune and go back to throwing a headphone jack in. It's true. It is a 100-year-old format, but it has stayed popular for 100 years for a reason. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's been a good format, and it's still serviceable. And also, let's be honest here. Like, anyone who's used high-end headphones, I'm about half deaf because I've gone to a zillion concerts. I can't really hear a huge difference in sound on my really fancy, expensive DJ headphones as opposed to crappy headphones, other than a little bit more bass. I really don't. I don't think anybody honestly hears the fidelity difference unless you're a 6-year-old kid who hasn't blown out their eardrums.
Yeah, we all hear so many loud noises during the day that's just kind of gone anyway. So I can see that. But, kind of like he was just saying, I don't really want to just talk about the dongle issue, but I kind of want to...
Donglegate.
I do want to say that their new slogan should be, there's a dongle for that. Like, if they don't use that, I will make a poster and put it in my room. But, I really want to see if, Apple will backpedal. That's an interesting idea, because I think that they kind of will. Because like you said the other day, the Apple stock has dropped since they announced it.
Actually,
no headphone jack.
It looks like they're up currently. The last I checked, their stock's up, I think, 50-some billion.
Oh,
and that is me. Yeah, I had to correct myself on that because I was initially reading reports that the stock had dropped. Now I'm reading it's gone up, and one big boost of that is for T-Mobile. They've set a new record on pre-orders for the new Series iPhone. That was a big reason for that jump. But really, it kind of depends how this plays out, because I'll always use BlackBerry as the example where if a company has so much hubris, they may decide to stick to their guns on a design issue all the way to where they sink their own ship. Apple is ultimately a business, and a business has to listen to its consumers' wants and needs. Comparing, I hate to do it, but comparing Tim Cook to Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs, as cutthroat as he was an absolute genius. He would figure out these ideas that people maybe didn't want, but when he put them into devices, all of a sudden it was this, it really did make a difference. It really did sell a lot of stuff, and then you would see it in the design. Like, there's so many things that are in my phone right now that were not something that a customer was asking for, but he's like, we're going to try this out because I think this is going to be the future, and it ended up, kind of being that way, where, I don't really feel like we're getting that out of Tim Cook. He's kind of, I feel like his design, the design stuff he's done with Joni has been more of a kind of a response to what we're getting out of everybody else. Steve Jobs hated big phones to death. He was very adamant making fun of them, and then, sure enough, Tim Cook's iPhone, and then we get a big iPhone that's just like a note. So they are a business and they are a successful business at the end of the day, and it's not just one person. But if their customers are not happy, like they seem like they are, as a business, they will make that decision. Are we going to give the people what they want? Because if they don't, they're going to pull a BlackBerry. But I don't think they're going to be that bad.
I really feel like if Steve Jobs was still alive, I don't know if you saw very many of the prototypes, but on the 7 Plus and the original prototypes, there were 4 gold connectors, just like at the bottom of the iPad Pro, I think. And I was so excited because I thought those were coming in to the iPhone 7. Like, they should have capitalized and done that, because then you could use, wireless charging. You can get little like accessories that go on there. Maybe they're like a camera shutter button. If they're boasting these new cameras, that could have been a really cool thing to add on. Maybe higher quality speakers that you sit your phone into. I don't know. There could have been so much they could have done with that, but they just didn't capitalize. Even if it was completely false, Apple keeps up with the things that get quote unquote leaked. So they might have even been like, that's cool, we'll use it.
Just as important as what Apple put in the phone is, like you said, is the things that they didn't put in the phone. I'm always listening to the chatter, and the requests where we want a bigger battery. The requests have been for the longest time, we want wireless charging. That's not coming in. And wireless charging is not a big, hard thing to implement on a phone. We work on phones with wireless charging. The wireless charging setup is the tiniest, thinnest little, it almost looks like a piece of plastic that hooks onto the battery. I believe there are third-party companies that make these little things so you can modify and put them inside your iPhone to make them wireless. It surprises me that they're not adopting it. I've had phones with wireless charging. It didn't change my life forever, but it was definitely a cool feature to have, and especially when the other ones have it, and the people do want it. The people are asking for it, and they didn't put that in there. It's kind of odd. And then, like you said, the keyboard connector thing, that I can see a lot of people would like to have that. That one I don't think is as crucial as a bigger battery and wireless charging.
Yeah, the bigger battery is like the biggest thing that Apple really needs to do, because there's so many times I have a lot of friends with iPhones, they're always plugged in, always.
And then, they could have done something Apple's kind of infamous for is they Android fanboys give them crap for being behind the pack on, you introduce it later, but they tend to, if they do introduce these things later, kind of introduce a more refined version of the feature. And taking a cue, like you said, if they're going to introduce this amazing camera, it's so big on the 7 Plus, it sticks out of the thing. If they're going to introduce this holy grail camera into a smartphone, they could have taken a cue from what LG and I believe one of the Motorola's did, and have some kind of optional clip-on hardware. That's a lot of things you can get. There's like 4 or 5 things you can get with the G5 that clip into it. I didn't really dig it, but I know a lot of people dug the camera handset thing that clicked into the G5 that actually gives it a grip, like a faux leather grip with like hardware camera buttons. They probably, if they would have done that and done it like the Apple way, they probably would have slayed with it with this new camera.
Yeah, I really think that they should have went with something more than just those AirPods.
Yeah, that's, that Project Aria or whatever they call it that Google's had that's kind of died off. I knew that was never going to be something that everyone and their mom was going to have, was that modular smartphone, but the legacy that left behind as far as these little modular hookins, I do think we are going to see more of it. It kind of started with a whimper. Like I said, not a lot of people bought those features. I got a couple of them. Yeah, mine has some cool stuff, and I use them. Like, I really love, I have a VR camera for my G5, and I can actually film live VR video. We can throw it into the headset, and you can actually watch video I filmed in VR. Like, that's pretty sweet. Not a lot of people bought it. Once again, it's a cool feature, but I do believe there is going to be a future in that, either through Apple or Android or both, to kind of push that. I think the big problem is not just with Apple in general, but with all these smartphone manufacturers is there's not been, all these phones are amazing, but there hasn't been any huge innovation in probably 5 years. All we're seeing is a better screen, a better processor, a better camera, maybe a little bit better battery life. My opinion, it's only an opinion, is I do believe that VR is going to be the future of all this stuff. Once these guys start implementing VR into a mobile setup, I think that'll be the next big kind of revolutionary thing to come out. The little amount I've played with VR is absolutely blowing my mind. I do believe it's going to be as big as the internet. And eventually Apple's, I think I just actually read something in the last week that Tim Cook was playing around with VR and said it was really interesting. They're eventually going to respond to that. with some kind of probably Apple VR. I mean, that's, I think, is going to be the next big innovation game changer for mobile devices.
I would be very interested to see where Apple takes that VR, because like you said, they come out later, but it's always like a little bit more of a refined idea and product.
Yeah, if anyone's
kind of want to
even-
see what they do with that.
Yeah, if anyone's even played with like the $30 headsets, because you can go on Amazon right now and get a $30 VR headset and use it even with your iPhone. It's not something that's iPhone native, but there's VR apps already. You can get a $30 headset, and it blew my mind. I mean, I'm a nerd. I play with technology all the time, and nothing's blowing my mind like that for a while. But any Android or iPhone for the last couple of years, you can pop in a little $30 headset, and you can like ride these virtual roller coasters that it feels real. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
And if you're standing, like I didn't realize this.
You almost fell over.
Yeah, like even though you're just standing there and you're kind of looking around, it feels like you're in it. So you'll like balance a waiver, and it's super neat. I mean, it's going to be awesome whenever more people pick it up and it becomes a more mainstream thing, and video games are played in it, movies are always up in there. I think it's going to be great. But to kind of wrap up everything today, to just iPhone 7, great phone, no headphone jack. That's about it. Like, everything else is exactly kind of what we expected. Gave us a little bit of a flair, a little bit of spice on the camera, and then they took it all away with the headphone jack. If you don't use your headphone jack and you don't use Square Reader, then it's not going to make any difference to you, and you can go get it and not even care. But, headphone jack is a big deal in a lot of people's lives.
Let's do this real quick. My Cliff Notes prediction for the iPhone 7 is I do feel like there's going to be backlash. I don't think it's going to be as bad as some people think it's going to be for the headphone jack. The T-Mobile pre-orders have already shown people are pre-ordering a lot of these devices. I do believe there's ultimately going to be some backlash. There's going to be some slowing down of the iPhone purchase. But I don't think it's going to be disastrous by any means. But what do you guys think we're going to see in sales with these?
Not so much sales. I think you're going to see some processors overloading in the iPhone 7. They're going to get hot, wear that battery down, check it out, wait and see. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Robbie on that. Especially with, all the stuff that's in there. You can only get so fast before it just kind of starts getting too hot.
It's kind of like PCs if you work on computers at all. An issue I run into with my laptop is like when you're building a laptop, there's a strong emphasis on ventilation. Like a good gaming laptop has like ventilation all over the place, because with that kind of hardware, if your stuff isn't breathing, it gets hot. And anyone who has a new smartphone can attest all of these latest generation smartphones have a tendency here and there to get extremely hot. And that's because if you're going to have this kind of horsepower, it has to breathe, and you can't breathe in a smartphone design. And back to Robbie's point, now that I think about it, something we didn't really touch on was that new waterproofing that is in this new generation iPhone. That's another concern with that, because with a waterproof design, it is sealed up. That air is not breathing in the device, and if it gets hot and there's no fresh air hitting into it, it's going to get hot, and we might see issues with it.
Wonder if the iPhone 7 batteries are going to start exploding.
And have a burn off between the two.
Well, that's something that I didn't even think of. That waterproofing will make it really hot. The only exits that were there, were the speaker grills all over the two at the bottom and the one with your earpiece. And now that those are all waterproofed up, that'll be interesting to see where that kind of ends. Or whatever begins from that not being there. But alright guys, hope you guys had as much fun listening to this as we did talking about it. But, I think that pretty much wraps up our thoughts and feelings and a little bit of facts that we have about the iPhone 7. Once they come out and we kind of see a lot of reviews and see some people with them and take a few of them apart, we might get back on here and just kind of tell you what we think about it after the fact. But until then, we'll keep you guys posted on everything on our Facebooks. So we'll talk to you then.